I can look at those facts and I can understand how difficult and painful and awkward and uncomfortable and undesirable all that stuff is. But before I go into prayer, I need to know what I want instead. And I need to know what I believe is possible. Do I think that the thieves are going to bring my car back? Because I can pray for that. But if I realize that only in like 0.2% of cases is a stolen car recovered in usable condition, then that's operating in the back of my mind. So what I want to be praying for is to have harmonious transportation and have all of the financial issues resolved and to be peaceful and okay throughout the entire process, which has nothing to do with somebody bringing my car back. So we need to be very specific about what it is that we believe is possible and what it is that we want to be experiencing and focus our attention on that, because the answer is going to be yes.
Hello and welcome to the New Thought Men's podcast, where we're building healthy masculinity in the world. It's great to have you with us today. I'm Eamon, and today's guest is Reverend Bill Marchiony. So let me introduce Bill before we bring him on. Bill serves those who call themselves spiritual but not religious, and those who don't have a particular church or temple. He is the co-founder and spiritual director of New Thought Philadelphia. newthoughtphilly.org is where you can find them. He is the author of the book Practical Prayer for Real Results, available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. It's a wonderful primer on the steps of practical prayer. He's also the administrator of ANTN, the affiliated New Thought Network, president of the Emerson New Thought Center Board of Trustees, and an active participant in the International New Thought Alliance, or INTA.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you back. We had a really fun time last year talking about abundance. So I wanted to continue the conversation around, another fundamental principle of yes.
Yes.
That the universe is yes. We are yes people. I don't know if you saw that movie with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, the Jim Carrey movie.
The Yes Man. It was a great movie and reminded me about just us to a certain degree, without all the crazy in it, obviously. But we are the optimists. We are the people who hold that higher vision. We are the ones who want to have the unfoldment happening because we see that it's a part of our genuine nature and who we are authentically. And on a spiritual principle level, that is the alignment. But before we get to all that, it's a little teaser, but before we get to all that, you just did your sharing on getting to yes, which was wonderful for our summit. And I loved what you said about, you kind of opened it up with the Big Bang creation, the singularity, the cosmos unfolding through that Big Bang process and through the scientific process. And I just love that because for me, and I feel for our New Thought community, that is kind of the foundational. We are based and rooted in science. This isn't true because I said so. So many, like even Ernest Holmes said, hey, don't believe me, try it for yourself. Use the scientific method, try it and see if it changes your life. If it doesn't, this might not be your path. But if it does, then maybe you found your people. I'd love for you to just share more about the Big Bang and about that end of, spirit saying, yes, I want to be in physical form, I want to be in the experience of planets and galaxies and universes and people and animals and plants. Share a little bit more about that with us, will you?
Yes, indeed. And one of the things that has been like the slow reveal for me because I've understood that there is one infinite creative power. There's just love, and it keeps on unfolding in all sorts of different ways, and the answer is going to be yes. And that's been part of my worldview since, I don't know, before I was a teenager. And I grew up in a Christian church, so I ran away from the things that they were telling me I had to believe, and I didn't have any spiritual practice for 20 years. And then I found religious science and New Thought, and it turns out that there were other people who believed the same thing that I did. But the part that I had to get away from was the notion that that infinite creative power has more than one answer. And I've been doing a practical prayer podcast, and we're over 200 episodes. And for the life of me, in New Thought, I didn't think that we would have more than 12 episodes worth of stuff to talk about, because it's just not that complicated. But I found a co-host who was relatively new to New Thought, but had grown up, not only grown up in the fundamentalist, the traditional religion, as she calls it, but she'd been a pastor in 3 different denominations. So she knew the stories, she could tell the stories, she could teach the stories. She knew that the answer to a prayer was yes, no, or not now. And when the answer can be yes, no, or not now, then what's the difference between any of those? What do I have to do? I have to be deserving of a yes. I need to do something to supplicate myself and make it worthwhile for that power outside of myself to give me the yes that I'm looking for. And heaven forbid that I get a no, because then something that I really want isn't going to happen. It's going to be no, and the door is slammed and I'm being punished. And that gives rise to all manner of nonsense. So okay, now there's a power that's working against the infinite, that's trying to get me to misbehave. And then it's a competition between the devil and God to get what they want. And suddenly there's not a oneness, there's a competition, and we're little pawns being played in this game, and it takes all of our power away. And the clarity that comes from knowing that there's one creative power, and in the Big Bang, there were not 2 Big Bangs. There wasn't a Big Bang over there for Eamon and a different Big Bang over there for other people, and they're banging together. There's not. There has to be just one. And the interesting thing is that the scientists look at the way the universe works, and they do that by studying natural laws and by applying natural laws. And we keep on fine-tuning it, The gravity was discovered by Isaac Newton a long time ago, and the laws of gravity have been exactly the same and completely immutable and unchanging until Einstein said, well, there's this one exception here. And so then they made an exception. But the exception was in our understanding rather than the way the law is working, because it turns out the law's always been working the same way. And in science, what we're trying to do is to understand natural laws and to apply them and to use them. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that the quantum physicists have a different perspective on how the universe works than the way the physical scientists, the physical physicists, I guess, think the world works. And, it's all the stuff that led to the atomic bomb and the semiconductor and quantum computers and all the rest of that stuff, which we're not going to get into right now.
Yeah.
Which is that there is uncertainty, that the universe is perhaps subject to opinion. And that is proving that we are actually active participants in the creative process. It's not like this stuff is going on in the universe and it just happens. On a spiritual creative level, we are participating in creating what we want to experience next, or not even what we want to experience next, what we're going to be experiencing next. Because I have quite a history of creating things in my life that I don't really want. It turns out that worry fulfills all of the criteria of an effective prayer. Bringing an intention into mind, focusing on it, repeating it over and over again, and believing it's going to happen. Okay? And the universe says, yes.
Yes, congratulations. Here is your door prize.
You won this horrible thing that you didn't want. And the universe doesn't know no. It don't know no. So, one of the interesting things about practical prayer is that when somebody comes to me and they say they're lonely, they don't have a relationship and they don't want to be lonely anymore and they really want to have somebody in their life, and can I do a prayer for them not to be lonely? And the answer is I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's a prayer for what you don't want. Yeah. That's focusing our attention on maybe what you've been experiencing up until now, but it's what you don't want.
Mm.
So now we have to turn around. We have to pivot and look at what you do want. Because the prayer that we're going to say, the intention that we're going to set, the activation we're going to do with that creative law that says yes to everything is going to get a yes. So then the question becomes, all right, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is the yes that I'm asking for? Do I want to just not feel lonely? In which case I could just feel numb. Slipping into a coma will stop me from feeling lonely, but I don't think that's what I had in mind. So what do I want to have instead? What's the experience that I'm looking for? And do I believe that I deserve it?
Yeah.
And if I do, then with all the power of my belief to set the intention for that, to make the invitation for that infinite creative power, to bring a wonderful, loving relationship into my life. And if I'm really particular that I want it to be with a woman or this particular type of woman, then I need to be pretty clear about that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of gay friends who just were looking for a loving relationship, and it surprised the hell out of them to find out that they were lesbians. I mean, just amazing. And they're very happy. They got exactly what they want, even if it wasn't what they thought they wanted.
Yeah.
So that yes is happening. So what we get to do is understand, identify, and claim the good that we're seeking, and let everything else get out of the way.
Yeah.
I got off the topic of quantum physics.
That's okay. That's okay. I loved it because it is the cosmos saying yes to all of it. That I think that's the foundation. And you were talking kind of about material science versus quantum physics, which is kind of this more like the cutting edge of how it interacts with us. And of course, we on our foundational level know that we are this thing, that everything in existence is literally a part of the thing, the oneness, the wholeness, all of that. And so being able to relate to quantum physics while at the same time acknowledging that quantum physics is built on material science, which is built on everything that we know in a logical, in a linear, in a material science kind of way. One of the series that I watch at least annually, if not multiple times a year, is the Cosmos series. The greatest one, I love the one that Neil deGrasse Tyson has done just because it's more modern, but even Carl Sagan, when he did his, I have copies of both of them. I'm such a nerd, but it's so amazing to me because I was never really, science was not I'm dyslexic, I'm neurodiverse. Science and math were not my thing at all, but it really puts it into very practical and actual terms of how did we evolve, and that next evolution, and quantum physics is that next evolution that science is moving in towards, that is about, how do we affect, and we know through the observer effect, like we affect the outcome. And so to be able to use that and bring it back to science and bring it back into getting to the yes is, that those are fundamental truths, not only in our spiritual tradition, but in the quantum physics world, that is really unfolding and explaining a lot of the metaphysical spiritual traits that are beyond the physical, beyond the material science, into this next level of what is possible. And I'm sure at some point we'll develop scientific techniques or sensors or something that will be able to measure this kinds of stuff, but I don't think we're there yet.
We're learning a little bit to measure it, and even more so to use it. But since you name checked Carl Sagan, I'm going to do a little detour into one of my my favorite discussions when people are praying for something that they don't necessarily believe that they can have. And that's when they say, well, this is really big. And it's somebody who has been broke and bankrupt multiple times and has nothing, and how can they possibly be prosperous? Or somebody with an illness and a diagnosis, and how can they possibly return to good health? Or when there's just that, how could this happen? How could there be peace on earth? Sometimes people pray for there to be peace on earth, and how could that possibly happen? So name checking Carl Sagan, he did a film called Pale Blue Dot, and if you've never seen it, then you should go find it on the internet, What he did when the Voyager satellite was leaving our solar system, there was a little bit of energy still in it. So Carl Sagan told the people at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, turn it around and point it at Earth.
Mhm.
And as it left our solar system, you can see the Earth, and it's this little tiny dot.
Mhm.
And the sound is the voiceover of Carl Sagan saying everything that's ever happened throughout human history, every person, every action, everything, every war, everything has happened on this pale blue dot. And it's just captivating because you realize that in a universe that's as large as ours is, the biggest thing that could possibly ever happen, not just to us, but on planet Earth, is inconsequential. You know, if the Earth is transformed suddenly into something completely different, how much does the universe change? Not hardly at all. And I use that as an example that anything is possible. We can't rule anything out because we just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, end of my detour.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you for that pale blue dot. I'm going to go check that out. And I've heard that before when he turned Voyager around and said, yeah, let's look at that. What a beautiful and insightful moment, for us, and a humbling moment, and I love was the movie with Jodie Foster, Contact.
Oh, Contact.
And
yep.
Which was actually written by Carl Sagan's partner, and she did an amazing job of that. And to be able to have Jodie Foster say that at the end, if there's billions and billions of stars in our galaxy, and there's billions of galaxies in the universe, and billions of universes in the cosmos, then literally there are millions of intelligent life has developed in our galaxy alone, much less the universe and then the cosmos. So it is a humbling moment that we are this pale blue dot, or we are this grain of sand on this, on the beach or the ocean of all existence. Yeah, how beautiful.
And it is simultaneously empowering because it reminds us that we can do anything.
Yeah.
And also humbling because we're pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And it can be both. It can be a yes and.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when Neil deGrasse Tyson's talking about the calendar, our development in the 14.2 billion years development calendar, and in the last 6 seconds, conscious
right.
Humanity has come to rise, and we'll see what we do with it. Even the dinosaurs did way better than we've done so far. So it's just it's beautiful, it's humbling, and yet this awe of, wow, infinite possibility. And over 14 billion years, what has developed? What has happened in our cosmos? It's just, I think it's a beautiful concept and idea. And I can barely wrap my head around to a certain extent, that gives such hope and such beauty to the relationship to what we truly are, and this everything consciousness, that we're part of everything, and the oneness and the wholeness. And yet we can barely even conceive of that in this small human brain that is so beautiful and powerful and amazing and creates everything right there for us.
The part that has got me going, and I had talked about it a little bit, is there's one story of how this was all created. I mean, all of creation came about somehow. And there are different versions of the story, but there's only one story. So there's a couple of possibilities. One story is correct and everybody else got it wrong, or we're telling the story in different ways.
Yeah.
So if you go with the Big Bang, 14.2 billion years, and it took an awfully long time for it to cool down enough for there to be hydrogen, okay? One element. And then that needed to collapse and condense to the point where it could fuse into helium. Now, hydrogen and helium is not really a happy dance. It takes a long time to get anything that's going to be, remotely seeming like a place to live. And that same timeline, as you say, the last 6 seconds of the evolutionary calendar is human life. And we have scripture that's saying this is all, God said, let there be light, and there's light. And then, 6 days later, there's everything is created, and that was all 6,000 years ago. And I don't look at that and say one story is true and one story is false. It's like, how can these both be saying the same thing? How can the stories from other religions, that we're on the back of a turtle, and it's swimming through the sea of eternity. Okay, well, what's the turtle on? Oh, well, another turtle. And what's all that on? Well, it's turtles all the way down. So somehow there's oneness that's coming up in all of this. And I look for the commonality in the stories. And somebody doesn't need to be wrong in order for me to be right.
Yeah.
In the same way that I don't need to be wrong in order for them to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, especially coming from a Catholic upbringing, for me anyhow, like where I have kind of gone the other way, where I really don't like using the word God. I don't really focus on the Bible or Jesus or that kind of stuff. And that's a part of my healing path, but not to make others wrong for that how does all of this coexist? How do we have just this unique understanding? And when we look at like how stories are told, like it's only recently that stories are written down. It used to be the oral tradition. So of course they're going to be varying stories. Of course they're going to be all over the map. How can we see that it's all true and that we all get to have our own unique experience and perspective in it?
Yeah, and the advantage that we have going into this is that we don't have a horse in the race saying that we need to have somebody else be wrong in order for us to be right.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the entertaining games that I like to play, and it's not one that you can win, so you better have fun playing it, is baiting the fundamentalists.
Okay. All right.
So you get into the kind. There's a whole bunch of entry points for it. And some of the really good ones are the things that Jesus actually said in the New Testament. And you can buy a red letter Bible where everything that Jesus said is in red. So you just pick those parts. So, and one of the questions that you can ask very sincerely is, so every word in the Bible is truth? Yes. Okay. And we know that because it's the Bible. Yes. Okay. Is there anybody who's like telling a story that's not really true so that you can kind of get the message? No, it's all literal word of truth. Okay, well, how about where Jesus said, they said, why do you tell stories? Why do you speak in parables? He says, because if I speak the truth, they don't understand. I have to speak in parables. So he said it's not all true.
Yeah.
And the fun part is watching how the pushback shows up. Because they're not going to go along with it. But it's fun to see what the response is. And, growing up Catholic, there's a lot of triggering that you had. The Catholic Church likes people to believe what they say to believe. Yeah. And the answer, I was in a pretty progressive Protestant denomination. And 2 weeks before my confirmation, I told my parents, I can't do this. I can't go stand in front of the congregation and say that I believe this. And they said, well, what don't you believe? And I was 12. And the big one that I didn't believe is that Jesus was the only Son of God. I also had some questions because I was a 12-year-old boy about, the virgin birth. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah. How does that happen? And so I stopped participating in that. And I had a huge allergy to the term God because it brought up for me that same deity, big guy in the sky with the excessive facial hair pointing down, judging. Yeah. And I wanted nothing to do with that because I had this inherent belief, no words for it at that point, that it's all love and that it's all love unfolding somehow. And even when things were really crappy, I knew that somehow love was unfolding. And it took a long time to get to the New Thought teaching. And I walked in the first New Thought church. It's like, these people believe what I believe, and they teach classes about it, and they have songs, and wow, this is home. Yeah. And that was wonderful. And I've gone through this evolution where I now understand that there is one infinite creative power, one love, one source that has been creating since the beginning of time. It is the one that responded when the infinite exploded or expanded or said, let there be light. It is all one. Everything is that one divine creative essence. It is infinite love. It is limitless intelligence. It is this divine power, and it is the sum total of everything that exists. And that's a really long sentence or a short paragraph, and you can shorthand it with the word God.
Yeah.
So as long as I've gotten myself, I've desensitized myself. I've gone through God allergy treatment. So I can use the term God, knowing that that's what I mean, and it's not the guy up in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel being judgmental.
I might need some of what you had because I'm still working on that one, but well, I'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, 200 podcast episodes in for somebody who spent 35 years teaching this stuff. Yeah. So it can take a while to unpack it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that for me, it's like everyone, I mean, we can say the word God, but everyone has a different meaning. Everyone has that personal relationship to it. So for me, it's using spirit or what, the divine, the light, all the other kind of terminology that helps me skirt around that old belief system that's kind of really, the Catholics do a good job of repetition and really notching that brain into, the track of belief. And for me, it has been, it's hard because I think of it the same way, like that. The old guy, up bearded, Santa Claus who's judging me, good or bad, all that stuff. And so to bypass that and to not make it a local conceivable thing. That's why I love using the word cosmos, because it just like, no matter how much you think about it, and I've seen these pictures of this is the cosmos and it's got, a bunch of universes in it and it's surrounded by, it's a kind of more of a representation of what scientists think it could be. But it's beyond this human comprehension. And of course, we as humans want to bring it down and say, I really want to understand that. Let me make it small. But how can you bring everything, literally everything down into that conceivable, so my brain can understand it? There should be some of that mystery in there. And that's why I love the native traditions in just calling it the great mystery. Like that's really, it is this mysterious, magical, amazing place in which that we are expressions as well as everything else. What a concept.
Yep. Yep.
So that's how my little mental workaround to make it so abstract that I don't see the old guy in the beard anymore, but I, in fact, try and continually wrap my head around cosmos, knowing that I will never do it. I can't.
And that's okay. And sometimes, somebody will ask me a thorny question, and my response is, that's above my pay grade.
Nice.
So,
nice.
I don't know. I could give you an opinion, but it would just be an opinion, and it doesn't mean anything because I don't have anything to back it up. And sometimes I have an opinion that I don't have anything to back it up with, other than intuition, which I think is a lot to back it up with.
Yeah.
And I'll say so, and I'll speak up, but it's about finding whatever it is that's harmonious and is in alignment. So you're talking about that image of of God as judgmental versus God as everything. And one of my favorite works of art to deal with that is Daniel Nahmad's song One Power, where he sings through and he names all of the different names for God. Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angel's wings, or heaven's door. I mean, it doesn't matter what you call it. There's one power, and the rest of it, thinking that it's only going by the name that I gave it, is not diminishing the power. It's still one power, but it is diminishing us in our ability to see the big picture.
Yeah. Great conversation. I love that. Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
Let's circle back around because in getting to, yes, you're sharing that you did for our summit, and I loved you. You kind of first started out talking about, how in corporations or boards or different things like this. And of course, you've been on many boards, so have I. And it's like how, addressing the no first. And I love that. Instead of like, who's in favor? Okay, there's 10 of us and 2 of us had objections and the rest of us voted it in without any discussion. But I loved what you were saying about, let's address the no first. Let's have the discussion. Let's allow the concerns. Let's clear out the resistance first so that we can find a path to yes, that then everybody can be on board. Share a little bit more about that.
I'll give you an example. One of the organizations that I'm deeply involved in is the Affiliated New Thought Network, or ANTN.
Love it.
And there was an ANTN board meeting, and there was a proposal. There was an opportunity to invest some organizational funds in somebody's work. And I think the original request was for $500. And somebody else on the board said, I think $1,000 would be a much better amount to use for this. And everybody, this is a prosperity teaching, and we, the organization has the money, so it's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And there's a lot of enthusiasm for $1,000. And so, the original suggestion became the motion. Somebody seconded the motion, and then one of the people in the group said, I don't think it's responsible to give that much money in that way at this time. And everybody goes, oh, really? And the person who brought up the objection made a really good point and said it would be much more in alignment with who we are, what we do, and what we're trying to accomplish to make it be $800. And everybody thinks about it for a little while. It's like, that's a really good point. And they were all ready to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. And somebody came up with a concern that was outside the bounds of what everybody else was looking at. And so the yes that came along was not to the initial $500, and it was not to the over-enthusiastic $1,000. It was to a middle ground that actually fit everybody's needs. And it wound up with everybody saying yes to it.
Mm.
So by leaving room for the objection, for the dissent, for the disagreement, and by empowering and respecting the people who are disagreeing, there's room for a lot of light to shine and a lot of good to come about.
Yeah. When I was at Mile High Church here in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a wonderful New Thought center, we had a men's group there, and we had a council that ran the men's group. And this is where I learned the many voices, the power of many voices, is oftentimes that would happen. It's like, let's have a discussion about it. Let's talk about it. And then one person would be like, well, here are my concerns. Well, these are my concerns. Well, I think this is good, or let's try this or do this. But in that, we got the whole picture. We got all of this wisdom and understanding that informed the ultimate outcome. That it wasn't 500, it wasn't 1,000, but it was this place that we came to together. And not that it was consensus or anything, but it helped us really get clear, and especially helped, anyone who had objections to really be honored and really be heard, which I think removes that resistance. And then they're able to go, I may not agree with this, or this isn't my thing, or I wish we could do this, but I can see this is the direction, and I can be 100% on board with this, where it's at, and let go of what I want versus what is maybe the best for the community or best for this group. So it was beautiful, beautiful. Over and over again, we saw that.
When we're involved in an organization and it's the structured communication and we're all on a particular mission, it can unfold in a really powerful way.
Hey, Eamon here. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Being a man these days is tough. We feel pressure from relationships, our friends, other men, from society, and even from ourselves. It can be lonely and we can feel isolated. I know I have. 15% of men in America have reported having no close friends, and 73% have 5 or fewer friends. How many other men do you talk with regularly about the most important things in your life? Well, we have a free video and a PDF on how to create deeper conversations and friendships with the men in your life. Click the link in the description below. Also, please rate and review this podcast, or like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. It helps us reach more people with uplifting content like this. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now back to the podcast.
One of the things that I'm going to bring up, because this, is the New Thought men's podcast, is that this works differently for men than it does for women. My whole family is women, except me and my dog. And my dog usually agrees with me anyhow.
Really?
And what I've noticed is that women will get together and somebody will bring up an idea, and then another one will object, and then the other one will just ask about something, and it'll be this whole ongoing conversation. They keep on saying similar things to each other as it comes into whatever the next step is going to be for whoever was talking about their story. When a man gets involved in that conversation with women, they tend to put a huge amount of weight on his opinion. Like, oh, well, he doesn't like it. And suddenly there's this competition. And so what I found for myself personally is that I have to be really careful about when I weigh into those conversations. And I can't weigh in like a girl. I have to understand that I'm going to be perceived and received differently. So I need to account for that. And practically in my life, what that means is I spend a lot more time listening. And a lot of time pausing in thoughtful reflection. I learned a long time ago that if somebody's talking and I know what to say next, it's probably a really good idea to not say it and to just wait for a moment. And a friend of mine once told me that when I pause, I seem wise rather than lost. Which is great. And sometimes when I'm lost, I pause, and while I'm finding myself, people think that I'm wise. And it's just fine. Go with the tools that are in your toolkit. But also for men to be aware that as we're engaging with other men, the relation and interaction is going to be different than we're doing what we think is the same thing with women. And when we see women doing that and we just try and go along, it doesn't necessarily work the same way as it works when they're just on their own.
Yeah.
So.
I recently started doing something in groups, especially as a man, especially as a white guy. I just made the conscious decision to go last or go towards the end. So I'm like, I really want, given the situation, the societal situations that we're in these days, to have, underheard, women, to groups of people that feel, like they haven't been seen or haven't been heard, to be able to have that voice and have that in there, whether it's, a person of color, whether it's a woman, whether it's a person with a different background or a sexual preference, gender preference, to be able to allow all of that wisdom to come in before I open my big mouth and allow the people who really have felt underheard in our society to really feel heard and seen and understood. And even if that means me not getting to say my thing, I want to put my little thing in there. It feels great to me to be holding that space, to be knowing that, and to be just stepping back and being able to witness and being able to listen and being able to honor what's coming forth. And if it's something that's really needs to be said that is in there, then there's always space for it. But if not, and a lot of times there isn't, I don't say anything.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Some number of years ago, I was running a teen group, and there was another New Thought spiritual community in the Philadelphia area, and they were doing a teen event. And I'd done some stuff with their folks, and that one is generally a black congregation. And so I took one of the kids from my teen group, and we went over and did this weekend overnight thing with them. And we were the only two white people there, which I knew was what was going to happen. And we spent a lot of time listening, and there was a sharing circle with the teens, like what's going on for you and what is it that you wish, and all the rest of it. And one of the things that I said then, and I put some legs onto it since then, is at some point there's likely to be something that you want to have heard, that you want to be able to say, but if it's heard coming out of you, nobody's going to listen. Let me know what it is, and I'll say it. And the same opportunity has come up lately. There have been the No Kings protests that Indivisible is running around the country, and I've been to a bunch of them, and I go to the ones in Philadelphia. Where the claim from our congressman at the first one I thought was brilliant, where he said Philadelphia has a really good track record with asshole kings. So
Love it.
And I go to those because I am the last person who's going to get hassled by the authorities, because I'm an old white guy.
Yeah.
And I'm driving there in my own car that I own. And so I go because it's safe or safer for me to do that. So I can lend my presence and my physical presence and my support and my intention in a space that might not be safe for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of getting to yes and what equality looks like, truly, the promise that is the promise of America, that we are all equal. And I think we almost have an unfair advantage in our philosophy, because we believe in this oneness thing. We believe that we're all connected. So when I see the spiritual essence in you and you and you and you, and that these external experiences are beautiful and lovely, like the flowers in the field, and I live up here in Colorado, up in the mountains, and flowers all over them. Well, what if we just had one flower, same color, same style, monocropped, in perfect rows, like we grow corn? What a boring world that would be. And so to be able to allow that, not only outer diversity, but the inner perspective and experience and wisdom diversity to come forward and be heard, only enhances us. Like they were saying, I was watching something and they said, well, the reason why we are the number one power is because of the N1B, meaning that it's foreign people can come in and then study here or work here. And it's like, that's where we get all these brilliant people from all over the world. And that's why America has this amazing, Silicon Valley and all these technological advances, all these things that were invented. Diversity makes us stronger. Even when we look at crops, it's like when we Monsanto the thing, and then something comes along that we're required to, put the fertilizer and the pesticides and all this stuff in. Well, Mexico and South America had something like 10,000 different versions of corn. And if one got attacked by a blight, or one was drought resistant, or, this one needed more water, the crops survived and they fed the people. And it scares me sometimes that we're so monocrop oriented, because that can easily be our downfall with just one wrong virus or blight or something like that. So it makes us stronger, that diversity and that uniqueness that we all bring. And yet it's all corn, and yet we're all spirit. It's all of us that make up the beauty of the world. It's in our uniqueness, not in our similarities, that brings richness to our lives, I think.
As you were talking, I was remembering the story that I think it was in the 1950s. There was a Chinese student. He probably came in the 40s, and he was the technology. He was an engineering student in California, and he started working on the rocket program and the U.S. space program. And being Chinese, he drew the scrutiny of the government forces, and so they deported him. They sent him back to China. They said, nope, it's not safe to have him here. So there he is sitting in China with like nothing to do. So he contacts Mao Zedong and he says, you want to have a rocket program? He built it for the Chinese.
There you go.
He's the father of the Chinese space program. If you want to take that to a spiritual perspective, we have the arrogant perspective that the success and the innovation and the prosperity, for some reason, should be here. And the universe is quite flexible with where the gifts, where the opportunity, where the insight, where the spark of genius exists. And if somebody in our government or in our culture decides we want to send it back to India, the universe says yes.
Yes.
Yes. And we can't complain about what we get.
And it spreads that seed that has now been planted, and it grows and flourishes all over. Yeah, brilliant.
Yep.
And Bill, there was one other question, just kind of circle back around to the yes question. And you offered an exercise at the end of your talk, as we asked, and I thought this one was really brilliant, is to look at the language, how we are asking, and are we asking the questions to get to yes, or are we asking the question in hopes that it will be a yes? Can you talk a little bit more about just consciousness around languaging? Because I thought that was beautiful.
Generally, what happens right before we decide that we need to have a prayer is something we don't like. The tendency of people to have something wonderful happen and say, I got to pray, much less likely than, watch out, there's something going on. I got to pray. Here comes the gang of thugs down my block, and it looks dangerous. It's time for me to pray. Because our mind says this is the bad thing that can happen. So it's going to be going to the doctor and they say, well, we need to do some tests, and our minds go crazy. Yeah. And then, please don't let me be sick. Please don't let this be cancer, or don't let this be a brain whatever, or whatever it is that we're afraid of. Our instinctive reaction is to say, I don't want that. And we really need to do the pivot. We need to turn around. What do we want to have instead? And putting words into that is really important, because we know that infinite creative power is going to say yes. So if my concern is the PET scan results, or the cholesterol, or the possible drug interactions, or the fact that the beloved partner says that she's leaving, or that my car got stolen. Okay, I can look at those facts and I can understand how difficult and painful and awkward and uncomfortable and undesirable all that stuff is. But before I go into prayer, I need to know what I want instead. And I need to know what I believe is possible. Do I think that the thieves are going to bring my car back? Because I can pray for that. But if I realize that only in like 0.2% of cases is a stolen car recovered in usable condition, then that's operating in the back of my mind. So what I want to be praying for is to have harmonious transportation and have all of the financial issues resolved, and to be peaceful and okay throughout the entire process, which has nothing to do with somebody bringing my car back. Yeah. So we need to be very specific about what it is that we believe is possible and what it is that we want to be experiencing, and focus our attention on that, because the answer is going to be yes. And one of my examples is the heartfelt prayer, oh, Jesus, please don't let them take my house. Oh, Jesus, please don't let them take my house. Well, that is a problem on so many levels. Oh, Jesus, there's a power outside of me. So it's not that, oh, divine power and presence within that creates everything, that's created me, that's created the house, that's created all of it. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about somebody I'm asking a favor to. So cut that part off. So, oh, Jesus, please. Don't let them take my house. That's asking for what we don't want. We don't want them to take our house. And the implication there is that the house that I have is actually the right house for me. Perhaps it's time for me to downsize. Perhaps what's going on is me letting go of what has been a financial boondoggle and has kept me house poor for 15 years. And this is the cutting the cord moment where I get to go into a new financial trajectory. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, I have to pack up all my stuff. Is it awkward? Yes, I'm going to be sleeping on somebody's couch for a while until I get myself reorganized. Is it the end of the world? Don't know. Possibly. Probably not. The prayer then becomes, oh, divine power and presence, oh, creative essence that created everything, including me, including my perfect housing situation. I claim to have my perfect home, my perfect place to live, in comfort and safety and health and prosperity. I'm grateful for it, and so it is. And that is way more powerful and much less dramatic than, oh, Jesus, please don't let them take my house.
Yeah, that the pivot point is the pivot point to yes, the yes perspective. And I think, sometimes it's hard because we really, our brain, this reptilian, this beautiful reptilian brain back here that has kept us in survival, that has allowed us to survive and thrive as a group by looking at all the negatives. But we've evolved to a point where how do we move that energy from the back here into the prefrontal cortex, or even better yet, the pineal gland, that higher spiritual consciousness, not just the mental consciousness, but the higher spiritual consciousness, and opening to possibility of not only what can my mind come up with, but what can the universe come up with. What a powerful, and I love that our philosophy really shares this. And it is about how are we saying it? Words are important because words turn into beliefs, very quickly. What is our outlook? And even though we're fundamentally programmed by this one back here, be in fear, oh God, please, that perspective. But when we move it up front and we say, you know what? I believe in this conscious universe, and that my good is in action, that I have abundance within me. I have 7 octillion cells, or atoms, 7 octillion atoms that comprise this body. How can we possibly say that we aren't abundant, or that we don't have access to that abundance of the universe? It's right here within us. That's how many stars are in the universe. So, it's almost microcosm, macrocosm for me. I always look for that. Is like, oh, here I am. I have as many stars as are in the universe. I have this universe within me that is immense, that is powerful, that literally has the power of protons, neutrons, and electrons, that if they're put together right, that it can create an atomic bomb, or it can create anything in creation.
There's one creative power, one divine presence, one love. Okay, and that's the start with the Big Bang and the whole thing. And there are now billions of galaxies with billions of planets and stars in each of those galaxies. And that is a level of abundance that is so far beyond anything that we can currently imagine. And that's kind of the power of doing a practical prayer. Of being able to do an affirmative prayer. Because the first thing that we do is we identify that there is that one infinite power and presence. And then we identify that we're part of it. We have to be. It's not, there's not, the universe is everything except me and the 3 feet around me. So it's just one. So that means that all of that good, all of that potential, all of that energy, all of that substance, all of that abundance that's available anywhere is available everywhere. And that means it's available to me. So is it somehow impossible for that infinite creative power that creates galaxies to not be able to cover my mortgage? No, that's absurd. That's absurd. I might be having a personal struggle, but that idea in and of itself is absurd. So it's a matter of getting into alignment with that creative power And there might be some steps for us to take. There might be somebody who is, bought into housing above their means, in which case there's an adjustment that needs to happen. But it's not because they're not deserving. It's just because this isn't the right time. And it's not that the universe doesn't have it. The universe has the house, and they just don't have the job that's going to support the house. It's about fitting the pieces together differently. It is not an abundance issue. It is a distribution issue.
Love that. Love that. I know we're short on time, but I'd really love to just talk for a moment about ANTN, the Affiliated New Thought Network, because that's how I met you. That's how we met.
Yeah.
Was kind of through that. I remember my mentor, Dennis Merritt Jones, was like, you need to talk to Michelle Whittington and you need to talk to Bill Marchiony at ANTN with what you're doing with your community. And I'm just so grateful because I spent a lot of time in Ernest Holmes', The Science of Mind and Spirit philosophy at Mile High Church, which was wonderful and amazing. But then and that connection there and that feeling of home and that feeling of appreciation. And then as a minister to find out, oh, wait a minute, there's this other organization that has thousands of communities and different that are involved in different, maybe the way in which they got there, processes or experiences like unity, divine science, the science of mind and spirit philosophy, or CSL, the organization that's behind that, the Universal Foundation for Better Living, all these amazing independent new thoughts communities that are all under this new thought umbrella. And how powerful that is for us to not only have our little individual communities and our local communities that we can go to and say, yes, I love the feeling and getting the hugs and the experience and the community and the minister and all that kind of stuff. But also there is this bigger picture that I'm a part of. There is this bigger experience that this spiritual philosophy is a part of and is expressing. And I think that's, for me, the place that now as a minister that I kind of have outgrown, that individuated, that those beautiful and small centers. And not that I don't go to Mile High, I love going there occasionally, and other centers here in Colorado, which are wonderful. But to see this larger picture of how can we have this, bring out this bigger impact? How can we have all of these communities coming together and have literally 1 million people probably showing up and saying, yeah, I'm a new thoughter. Oh, I believe in that. What kind of transformation can we do when we move to that level? And I feel like we're in the process. And the ANTN and INTA has been planting those seeds for many years, and other organizations to bring us to this point in time, so that it says, I feel it's communicating, at least to me for sure, and I know for others, because we've had discussions, like, this is it. This is the time. How do we bring this out? How do we come together in a larger way and have a bigger impact? Because our planet needs this philosophy. Our planet needs this consciousness. Our planet needs the yes right now. There's a lot of no out there, and a lot of fear and a lot of pain.
The Affiliated New Thought Network, ANTN, as they say for short over there, was founded probably 35, close to 40 years ago. And it was specifically as an alternative to the people who had taken ownership of the religious science part of New Thought. It's evolved and grown and morphed since then. And it was originally for ministers, for independent ministers, and then it was opened up to other leaders in those ministries, and then it opened up to participants in those ministries. And what we've very intentionally done in the last 5 years or so is our annual event is the ANTN Retreat, which we do at Unity Village in Kansas City. And the first time I went to an ANTN Retreat, I think it was called a conference then, it was probably in 2011. And I had been through the ringer of the political ringer, as the organization that I had been in was merging with a similar organization, and I got squeezed out like a watermelon seed. And I went there and kind of with my head down because I didn't want to get caught in politics. And the person at the registration desk said, "Oh, we don't do politics." Consciousness is the sole authority. It's like, that's my kind of organization. And the mission of ANTN at this point is connecting the New Thought community in consciousness and love. And that's the big thing that the organization is about. And the president, Jerry Troyer, when he took over as president, said, we are going to say what we mean and mean what we say. So there's been a lot of fine tuning, and that's another thing you can do is take a look at the way that you're saying something and say, is that really what I mean? Is the words that people hear when I talk the actual ideas that I'm thinking of as I'm saying these things? And it's remarkable what happens when you start questioning that. I went to an INTA Congress. They've been doing congresses every year for like 120 years or something, 110.
Amazing.
And it was in 2019, so it was the last one before the pandemic shut a lot of stuff down. And a longtime friend of mine, Tim Stewart, who has since become the president of INTA, said to me kind of offhandedly, as INTA was a whole bunch of religious science people and a few divine science people, and we were in a unity church in Nashville, and there was a cross-connection smattering. And he offhandedly said, oh, yeah, people who know about one of these denominations in New Thought think that they're all different. And people who know anything about two of them know that we're all exactly the same with slight changes in flavor.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, so I need to learn more about these other ones. And the difference is that religious science has Ernest Holmes as their go-to, and Unity has Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, plus some other folks like Catherine Ponder, who were pretty spectacular in getting their success. And Divine Science has a bunch of people. Emmett Fox is one of their way showers, not one of their founders, but some of the stuff that he did was just spectacular. And they keep on teaching other people, and then they take those ideas and they recombine them. So the Universal Foundation for Better Living came out of Unity, and that was Johnny Coleman in Chicago, and formed Christ Universal Temple and made a mega church and then made a denomination out of that. And they're teaching the same New Thought principles in their own different flavor. They tend to do it a little more gospel-y. And that's fine. It works for their audience. And then you get, Michael Beckwith left Centers for Spiritual Living, at that point it was the United Church of Religious Science, and formed Agape because he had a different idea. And the Hillside Chapel in Atlanta did the same thing. So it's taking these same ideas and presenting them in a slightly different way. I mean, one of my favorite things is that if you do the What We Believe from Centers for Spiritual Living, I think there are 11 things that we believe. And it's a pretty long list. And if you go to Agape and you read their list, it's 5 or 6, and it means about the same thing. And at New Thought Philadelphia, which is my community, I said, well, there's only one, so let's see if we can whittle it down to just one. What do we believe?
Nice.
And we did, and we left off a lot of the details. So there's some stuff that you can get from the 11 elements of what we believe from religious science and Ernest Holmes that become part of the details. But we say we believe there's one power, love, intelligence, or force that creates everything, including each of us. And then we each use that same power, love, intelligence, or force to create our lives according to our beliefs. The way I wrote that down on my license plate frame is your new life begins with a new thought. And it means all of those same things. And it means the same thing that everybody else is saying. And it's not like I'm right and they're wrong. I'm just different and singing my own particular song.
Yeah.
So when I first got involved in INTA, we were doing a Congress, and it was going to be at the Christ Universal Temple, the UFBL home office in Chicago. And I was working with the Congress chair, and I said, wouldn't it be great if we invited all of the leaders of all of the New Thought organizations to do a platform session all together, talking about what we all have in common? Because everybody knows what makes us all different. And it was groundbreaking. It was awesome to get all of those people together at the same time and hear a completely different message on exactly the same subject from 7 or 8 different leaders. And that's continued. And somebody said we should continue doing something together. So the leaders actually get together once a month for a 15-minute prayer call. And it's not for business or for alliance or anything else. It is to get together for 15 minutes the first Wednesday of the month and just pray together, to set the intention for being the spiritual leaders that the world needs right now, and to support each other in prayer, a few minutes in silence, and then quarter after we leave. And just getting that group together from all of those different organizations is a huge concrete reminder of the connection that we have.
Yeah.
To the point that I think 5 or 8 years ago, New Thought was finally invited to be one of the religions at the Parliament of the World Religions.
Mm.
And that was the doing of the Association for Global New Thought.
Yeah.
And this year, the chair of the board of the Parliament of World Religions is Reverend Charlene Emmanuel, who's a unity minister. So the New Thought is now at the head of the Parliament of the World Religions. So yeah, this change and transformation is happening. And when we're talking positive, we say the same thing that every other religion and spiritual practice has. You know, we use different tools. I ran a teen group for a while. It would have been much easier to manage the teens if we had hell and damnation, but I didn't have those tools,
Right.
so I had to use love and patience.
Yeah, easier to raise funds if you threaten people with the eternal damnation, stuff like that. Which we don't do, and I mean, that's one of the many things that I love about that is there isn't that guilt or shame. There isn't that, that threat. Should religion threaten, threaten you? That it should include you.
That depends on the purpose of the religion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The purpose of the religion that I want to participate in, that's not the idea. It's to be love, see love, and let the light of love shine.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, then that's a success as far as I'm concerned. And if there aren't more people in the pews, and if I'm not obligating people to tithe to my church, I haven't done a good enough job of explaining the personal benefit of tithing, not to the church, but to the person who's giving. But yeah, if it's compulsory, then how valuable is it?
How valuable? Yeah. If you're threatened in those ways, which we shouldn't go down that rabbit hole at this point.
No, we're gonna have to do the Eamon's post-Catholicism later.
That's right. That's right. We'll save that maybe for another podcast. I'll need to be ready for that one. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Just sharing about ANTN and Jerry Toyer is one of our speakers this year. So, during the summit, people will be able to see his talk. And we had a lovely conversation about this as well. Just what is ANTN? What are we about? What are we doing? And it's just really beautiful to see that and to feel that coming together, that sense of oneness, that we are all in this together. And it's such a beautiful philosophy. And we all have these amazing different kind of tools and things that we specialize in. And so for me, I just find it so beautiful that it's all coming together. I'm glad people are dedicated to holding Ernest Holmes in a beautiful way and holding the Fillmores in a beautiful way and holding Melinda Kramer, and in a beautiful way, Divine Science, and Ronnie Coleman, and it's just all of these amazing people who have brought all of it, and Michael Beckwith, all these incredible people who've brought all these amazing things. And I think we're ready to transcend that, move past some of that anyhow, to still keep that and honor that as the individual experience, and honor the founders of this philosophy. And of course, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was the teacher, taught everybody basically New Thought, this New Thought philosophy, and how beautiful. And I see almost this full circle coming back around from her teaching to bring us back together again and to bring this philosophy to the forefront, which people need right now. With everything that we're looking at, don't we need positive, optimistic, practical and real life tools, and engagement and consciousness, and where the rubber meets the road to what are the steps of how do we make a difference in this world? Truthfully, how do we work with climate change? How do we work with social injustice? How do we work with, all the challenges that our modern world is bringing, which is, they're immense. AI and technology, we have all of these things that have evolved and evolved and evolved, and And spirituality has evolved too. You know, there have been different and many movements, but I feel like unless we're willing to really engage the spiritual evolution, like we have the technological evolution and revolution, that unless we're willing to engage that spiritual revolution and bring that up to the consciousness of which technology has been brought up to, and the value of which technology has been brought up to, that we're missing something as a humanity. We're missing something as a people and as a community. I'm ready for it. I'm 100% on board with it. I love ANTN. My last year's retreat was my first time coming to that retreat, and I had such a great time. It was not only was it wonderful for me to just be able to go to something and not have to speak at it or lead something, but just to be able to be in that collective consciousness of other ministers, practitioners, and New Thought people who really love this, and to be in that was just powerful and potent. And I'm looking forward.
Family reunion, get together and love on each other and do something fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, beautiful. So I have one final question, Bill, that I've been asking is, what does divine masculinity look like in the 21st century?
I always love to answer a question by considering the opposite of the question.
Oh, okay.
So what doesn't it look like? Well, it doesn't look like the toxic masculinity that has gotten so much attention now, and it is not the power-based or force-based, I'm going to get my way, look at it.
Competition.
So I've studied Dr. David Hawken, and one of my favorite books of his is Power versus Force. And power is that strength and presence. It's the connection with the divine within us. So what the divine masculine looks like is power instead of force. I can be that bright light of love that I am and let my power come through without having to force somebody else to do something. And that way we all tend to have the ability to collaborate and to head in the same direction together.
Yeah.
So the first George Bush said, kinder, gentler. And maybe that's the term too.
Nice. Yeah, I it reminds me of this saying of we want power with instead of power over. I think that's a huge distinction. Beautiful, Bill. Beautiful. Thank you. I know that we're headed in that direction, and that the universe is saying yes to healthy masculinity in the world.
Amen.
Because we're really getting to see the opposite of that right now, and it's so destructive and so painful to watch.
We'll take that as here's what we're going to pivot from.
Yeah. And change is hard. Change often, I think oftentimes the old beliefs and the old understanding, the old consciousness comes back around kind of at the end of before the beginning. You know, the beginning has started, but then it comes back around, you know, and we get to do this dance with how does it spiral upwards? How does it evolve? How are we in our genuine and natural state, which is evolution, which is to change, which is to be a part of the growth of consciousness and humanity? You know, how do we get to be a part of that? And so I find that to be just incredibly exciting that we're moving into this thing, but it's a hard transition right now. And a lot of ugly things are coming up, but like racism, like sexism, like, you know, homophobia, like all of those things. But I believe that they're coming up to be healed. They're coming up to be blessed, because if we don't have consciousness around it, if it isn't, you know, in our faces, if there isn't this deeper look into how I as a man participate in that, and how I can heal that, how we as a society, you know, hold ourselves, not able to make that transition. So the fact that all this is coming up, it brings me hope. It really does, even though there's kind of ugly reactions to what's going on, and there's the pushback, and by the old guard, the old consciousness around masculinity, which, you know, is a part of that evolutionary process. So I have a little more patience around it, even though it's kind of hard to watch some days.
Yep.
Well, beautiful, brother. So just want to share a little bit about Bill. You can find Bill at bethelight.com. It's b-the-light.com, as well as newthoughtphilly.org. And, your book's on there, your groups are on there, your coaching, all the amazing things that you're doing, Bill. I'm just so grateful. I'm so glad we met. I'm so glad we get to spend time together and to become friends and colleagues as well. Grateful for you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eamon.
Yeah. So as we just wrap up, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. There's more to come, so stay tuned in.